It's great to be here today. Thank you to Karen and to the team for inviting me. And what a great looking crowd. I always feel kind of like a comedian when you stand up at the first of one of these things. So when I think of ports, I think of boats. And I'm sure a few of you have heard this story. It's purported to be true, but I'm going to read it to you because it makes me chuckle when I think what your front line people go through some days in those big seas. This is the actual transcript of a radio conversation between a British Navy and the Irish Coast Guard. Coast Guard, please divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision. British Navy, recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid collision. Coast Guard, negative. You will have to divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision. British Navy. This is the captain of a British Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. Coast Guard, negative. I say again, you have to divert your course. British Navy, this is the largest ship in the British fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support ships. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees to the north, or countermeasures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of the flotilla. Irish Coast Guard, this is a lighthouse, your call. So frankly, on the subject that I'm going to talk about today, there's many days that we're the lighthouse, and there's many days that we're the British Navy thinking we have a lot of powers to change the world, and we really should just listen sometimes. So I'm just going to run through quickly. I was asked to talk a little bit about Michelin North America and Michelin in general. I want to talk about the relationships we all have together, why we are linked together. Like it or not, the people around you really are determining your success with obviously your input to make that happen. And thirdly, I want to talk a little bit about the future, just some of the things we see coming up and truly make a demand on you as our customers make a demand on us. So with that said, if we can run a quick video on Michelin. So many people think of Michelin as a tire company, and we truly don't think of ourselves as that. We're a mobility company. We have green guides, we have red guides. We were the first ones to start street signs, direction signs in France, caught on the rest of the world. We have Via Michelin, we have lifestyle products, but the point is the world is getting smaller, but it only gets smaller through people like you and the businesses you're doing and people like us. Now, the key is to do that and to keep the world sustainable, to treat it right and to treat each other right. So just quickly on that again, we're 112,000 people, 68 production sites in 17 countries, 184 million tires a year. That's an unbelievable number when I think about it, and frankly, we should be at 250 million if we really wanted to meet our markets. 21 billion euros in sales, and we put about 700 million euros back into research and development every year, because if we don't, we'll die. It's just that simple. If we're not leading, we have no market with what we do. And finally, our largest tire, I just like this one because I had a chance to have a picture with it. That's me standing in front of it. Our smallest tire is this big. So we go the whole gamut, and that will make a little more sense as I talk about Michelin in Canada. So now I'm going to switch to Michelin North America, Canada. We were announced in 1969, the first Michelin plant outside of Western Europe. And frankly, the reason we're here, that's often a question, is why did François Michelin come here versus all the other places in the world? And it was because of the people. He felt, although we spoke a different language, we felt very much like the people in Clermont-Ferrand, where he is from, and he trusted us. And it was a bit of a leap of faith to come out of Europe. We had the radial tire. They were selling very well in the world. We were a company at the time who believed we knew best and the customers were lucky to get our tires. Obviously, that wasn't sustainable forever. And to step out of Europe, out of Western Europe, we really felt the company could have been at risk. Obviously, it's worked. So we have 3 manufacturing facilities. We have one in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, 1.6 million under the roof. It makes over 600 ton of rubber a day, our second biggest rubber making in the world. And it makes basically winter passenger tires. Those tires go everywhere from Scandinavia, US, Canada mostly. Bridgewater, it makes cable, over 100 ton of cable a day for the operations, mostly in Canada and in North America, and just over 13,000 passenger light truck tires. And then our biggest plant in Waterville makes truck tires, poids lourd tires, military tires, and little Jenny Seville tires or little earth mover tires. And it also does something called a cabling operation, which makes a skim that you would know as a steel belt. So we're all interdependent. We're one big happy family. And the reason we do that in Canada, all of the manufacturing for Michelin in Canada is here in Nova Scotia. You can't afford to put each of these technologies in each plant. You have to have them close enough to each other so we can ship them back and forth. So 3,500 employees, 3,300 of them are here in Nova Scotia. We make just over 7 million tires a year here in these 3 sites. Again, anywhere from a passenger tire like you'd have on your car to about a 500 kilo tires that you'd see on a front end loader. Our head office is in Laval, Quebec, which is where I really should be, but I wanted to stay in Nova Scotia and I was able to do that to base my work out of here and travel there rather than the other way around. We're the second largest exporter in Nova Scotia, but I want to argue this because the first is lobster, and lobsters don't have any raw materials coming in. We have all our raw materials coming in. So. And finally, we're about to celebrate 50 years here in Nova Scotia, so it's been a very successful combination with the province. So I'm going to run just a real quick video. The rest of the videos are really short. I love this one because it starts with, a tire is round and black. If anyone in this crowd goes, really, I want you to leave, okay? Please, if we can run that little video. So I thought that was a lot easier just to quickly show than to try to explain to you the 280 different portions and chemicals and products that we put into every tire. What's kind of neat, particularly here in Nova Scotia, is almost 0.0% of the product that leave in our tires come from Nova Scotia. Typically, we have really great natural resources. We mine, we harvest, and we send them out. In this case, we bring them in. So here's a little bit of the world of where the different products come from that these 3 sites use. Obviously from all over the world, and obviously you see a lot of blue there. There's a lot of shipping, but there's also a lot of planes, trains, trucks, and ships. It's nice to have this type of manufacturing, though. We need more of it here in Atlantic Canada because it's just a base of operations that really does generate other activities. But lots of stuff coming in. Going out, if you can see those stars, obviously we make tires for the Canadian market. 75%, over 70% go to the US. And then we have a scattering of products that go to Scandinavia, to Europe, and some to Asia. What's interesting in our business with NAFTA and things like NAFTA in the conversation, people will say, are you nervous of NAFTA? Absolutely. But it's one example of we're not competing with the US on tires. The US makes about 5 million tires a year that we use in Canada. We make about 5 million tires a year here that the US use. It's just over $1 million every time we dimensional tooling or tool to make a tire. You're not going to make 100 tires when you're spending $1 million just for the tooling. So what we do is we try to produce locally, but locally really means it has to be at an economy of scale. Maybe a Ford F-150 tire you could afford to make in 2 countries. If we don't make them here, because the US puts a NAFTA trade up, if the US doesn't make them there because we put a NAFTA trade up, we'll ship them in from Europe. So we're in this together. It's not always the case, I get that. Sometimes it's head-to-head competition. Sometimes it is, though, and this is an example of it. So we'd kind of like to change this from plane trains to ships trains because we don't use our ships enough. We definitely use them enough to bring stuff in, but we do not use them enough to bring stuff out. And I'll give you a little example of that later on. So what does it take to compete? These slides look different because they are actual slides that I use when I'm talking to the very, very senior people from France when I'm talking about Nova Scotia. So to be absolutely pure, I just pulled them. The first thing we have, and a lot of you know this, the biggest competition in the world today is not electricity, it's not natural products, it's being shipped in, it's talent. We have 13 exceptional universities in this area and a super community college system. We harness that, and we need to harness it more. Still, too many of our folks, our young people, are going to other parts of the world. We know it's getting better, but it's absolutely a recruitment that we have here in Maritime Canada that doesn't always get shown. And you see so many leaders throughout the world who grew up here, trained here, and then went on to make great careers other places. That's absolutely a competitive advantage for us. Second is we have low labor costs because local markets include the U.S. We're at about 65% equivalent labor cost to the U.S. today. It's significant. Now the dollar is undetermined. We're back up to 82. The 25-year average, a lot of you would know, is 81.5 cents. That's about where it should be. We've seen it at $1 to $1. We've seen it, as low as 65 cents. It's an advantage today, and we need to harness it well. It's where it is today. Corporate tax rate is cheaper here than the U.S. Ports. Our port, you can't pick up a port or you can't buy a port. If we didn't have this wonderful port, we wouldn't be here. And our highway systems are excellent. And last but not least is we have a very cooperative and a very supportive government and community. We've been here almost 50 years. There's been some rocky spells, but overall, we're recognized in the world of Michelin. We're in 68 countries. We're actually in 190 countries where we sell, and this is seen as one of the most cooperative places to work in the world. That's important. Things we need to fix, like any good hockey player, any good piano player, any good anything. Everybody has their skills, and nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. So logistics costs are too high. Now that's because we're in Nova Scotia. It's a great place to bring stuff into, but we're a long way from the markets. It's not because we're not shipping well, it's not because our logistics aren't good, it's because we're far from the markets. It's just simple geography. We've got to find ways to do that cheaper. And then energy costs are too high. Natural gas has helped. You may or may not be aware of this, but we pay up to 10 times more for a liter of natural gas than they do in Alberta, for example. If you're a company looking to expand in Germany and you need natural gas, it doesn't make sense to come here. Nova Scotia Power has really done some great things on the electricity side. What we need to do for Nova Scotia Power is give them a base. We need more industry here for more people pulling on it so we can get the fixed costs divided by a better denominator, if you will. So those are really the challenge areas for us. So where is it all going? The cost of a Michelin tire today is the same as it was 20 years ago. Now you're going to say, no, I bought tires cheaper 20 years ago. That's because you bought 14-inch and 15-inch. If you bought those same tires today and didn't buy these 18, 19, 20-inch, you would pay the same price. If you bought the 18, 19, 20-inch, if you could get them, you would have paid the same price and they would not have been as good. Now people say to me, why do you guys make those big tires? Why not just stay with those nice cheap 14, 15-inch? Why do you guys buy those big tires? We'll make whatever the heck you want, whatever you want to use. We're just making what people like. That's why we make them. Our tires are really expensive. We're a tier 1 tire maker. We know, pardon the term, but 1-0 shit, and we're in trouble. We cannot afford what some big companies have done. We are the quality leader, and we need to be the quality leader, and we charge a lot more. We're expensive. We do not think we are overpriced, though. And I'm going to use somebody else's numbers. 84 J.D. Powers Award as of this year. Every other tire maker in the world combined, we're 4 times higher than. Pirelli is the closest with 9. We've got 84. When you buy a Michelin, you're getting what you paid for. Our problem is eventually people aren't going to be able to afford them. And the competition is fierce. So cost is a big issue for us, obviously. Is it good enough to be the safest and best quality tire? Obviously the answer is no. It needs to be environmentally sustainable, we need to be responsible, and people need to be able to afford them, and they need to be worth what we're charging for them. So this is what our partners ask of us, and really my message to all of you today. We need you to do exactly what you're doing today, except we need you to do it faster, we need you to do it more accurately, we need you to turn it over quicker, and we need you to do that cheaper. That sounds fair, doesn't it? It's what our customer asks of us, and frankly, to compete in today's world, and I know you know this, that is the reality. So let's talk a little bit about how do we get from where we are to there. Let's first take a look at where this is all coming together. So sometimes, even though we do work really, really well together, we compete really well here in Nova Scotia, here in Canada. We had a tough announcement March 2014, where we downsized a facility by 560 jobs. It's 2017, there's more people working in Michelin in the plants today than there was in March 2014. So we continue to win. We downsized because the plant was set up to make 14 and 15-inch tires, and people just don't buy them anymore. And you don't stretch what we cook them in the cooking ovens called curing presses. So you got to take them out, you lose jobs, and then you fight back. As we work our way through, what this is depicting is us negotiating. Even though it's great tools, it's great intentions, sometimes we get a little bit in the mud. Can we run that little video, please? Okay, point being is sometimes, I don't think we're not trying to be on different pages, but we work in different worlds, and sometimes we don't communicate perfectly with each other. So it's really just reinforcing the point. We're in this together. This is just a little example. So a ton of cable. We make cable, as I said, in the Bridgewater facility. We also make the same earth mover cable in Thailand. So if you look at the Thailand route, and you look at the Nova Scotia to Greenville, South Carolina route. So our earth mover plants are in Greenville, South Carolina, and those are those big tires like the one I stood in front of. One of those routes is twice as expensive as the other one, even though Thailand is 10 times further away. The problem is the route that's 2 times more expensive is the route from Nova Scotia to Greenville, not from Thailand. Now it comes back to a little bit of zut in the video that I just showed you. The problem is on paper, so Claremont head office gets this, they call me and the world is ending, and why is it twice as expensive to ship it from Nova Scotia to South Carolina than it is from Thailand? And then you get into the details. From Thailand, it's 2 months. They wrap it in the factory. It's on wonderful big boats. From Nova Scotia, it's 2 days maximum. It's on refrigerated trucks. It has all kinds of care and take. They're not apples to apples. We just need to get smarter at it. And that's why that lovely red route, and you guys know I love trucks. Trucks are good. Trucks use tires and they're good people. But it would be okay if that route was just a little more to the east and on the water, if we can figure out how to do that. We just need to get smarter. We don't necessarily have to get harder. We just need to get smarter in some of these things. So we need to go forward. Good way to think about going forward is always to look back a bit. So yesterday and today, we had boats. Now we have real boats. We have wonderful equipment at the container pier. We are really lucky to have you here. We really do count our blessings on that. We had trains. We got really nice trains. Although I don't see any of those 60-foot containers. I like that at Canadian Tire. I saw the one out there. So step at a time though, right folks? We had trucks. We like Michelin trucks. We like these a lot better. You know, in one of the step forward, this is not an advertisement. This is not me trying to sell tires. It's just an example. So this is a new generation double-wide single tires. We and 7 other manufacturers make them, so it's not just a Michelin thing. They're 10 to 19% better on fuel economy. They allow 300 kilos more on every truck. They're much safer because you're only taking care of 1 tire, not 2, and the second one on the inside, if you've ever been with a trucker, you can't see it, so to get under there and figure out if you're at the right pressure and those types of things causes issues. Those are breakthroughs. Those breakthroughs are coming. Planes just keep getting bigger, and as they get bigger, they also get more fuel efficient, which is a good thing. So where are we headed? Moving on, we've been 20 years now on sustainability as a focus conference called Bibendum Challenge. We changed it to something called Moving On. It's really a set of TED Talks, bringing really good minds together to look at worldwide problems, and it's to show new innovations, as much to sell the new innovations, and they're not tires, it's all kinds of innovations, as it is to stimulate people with new innovations. The one that was most interesting, for example, to me this year at Moving On in Laval was a plane fully powered by solar. It was said it could not be done, and it was interesting, the 2 gentlemen, the 2 mad scientists who did it, they fired everybody who had ever known how to design a plane and hired a bunch of artists, solar panel people, and people who didn't understand how to make a plane, so they weren't stuck in the paradigm of how to make a plane, and I saw the plane fly. It's very neat. So, some of the things that come up, as I say, it's not just tires, is meeting in the sky. Apparently, when you're scared, you're way more creative. These things are coming. True story. Obviously, the Tesla, something we'll all be driving somewhere in the future with their electrical. This is a bus that I drove around the city of Montreal, no driver, fully electric. Bikes that collect solar power, or you can charge, or they collect your power as you bike. Net point being you get on a bike and you don't have to pedal. Now, I worry about our physical health because we can use some pedaling, but just neat breakthroughs. And I was going to come on stage in one of these, but Deb Carty wouldn't let me do it. I actually got on one. They're really neat. They're cheap. Again, I see them going around my neighborhood now, how quickly these things catch on. Zero pollution boats. And this is interesting. So this is starting to step even more into the future. So this is Elon Musk, his Hyper One. Be anywhere, move everything, connect everyone. Just a little bit thinking out of the box. Halifax to Vancouver by car, 53 hours. By rail, 26 hours, not bad. By plane, 8 hours. And by our new Hyperloop, 5 hours. How are you going to compete with that? If you don't start today, and I know I'm not preaching to the choir here because I know you folks know this as well as I do. How am I going to compete with that? If we're not ahead of this, we're not going to compete with it. So that's really the question. Competing really, the more we're together on this, the easier it gets. The more your minds will help us shape mobility and tires, right from those little ones to the big ones. And like it or not, we're stuck together. I want you all to make a fortune. The more money you make, the more taxes you pay. The more taxes you pay, the less taxes I pay. The less taxes I pay, the more money I have for innovation, and we can do all kinds of great things if we just have money. So go and be really, really successful. We'll try to work with you to do the same thing. And I think it's probably worthwhile showing our next vision while we're here, trying to think out of the box. This is not what the wheels I know look like. These are the future wheels that Michelin thinks will come forward. I'll run the video and then I'll talk just for 2 minutes on them. So the idea is those are completely recycled products. We stole from nature in terms of the design, really from the coral reefs. It gives a really nice smooth ride. The idea is you buy your car, you never change them, you never buy another set of wheels. Again, fully recyclable materials we can make them out of, and they're fully recyclable at the end, which obviously bothers us, the end life cycle of tires and trying to get to zero waste to landfill. It's not easy. It's kind of like cooking an egg and then uncooking an egg. This will do that. The tread design, because of the 3D printing, you can have a summer tire, you can have a winter tire, you can have an off-road tire, and with 3D printing, you only put enough material on that you're going to use for that ride, and then you put the next on. And at the end of it, we can suck that material back off it and change it into the other shapes that we're using. That's starting to move forward. It's not quite the same as hovercrafts. It's not the same as getting zipped from place to place with whatever they used in Star Trek, the deck where they would move around. But we want to be in mobility for the next 100 years. We don't think tires will be here. They definitely will not look like they do today. So we're always working on new ideas, new places to go. What we're asking of everyone else, and I know you're doing it, I heard Minister Bryson say this morning that the board is working on ideas 50 years from now. I think that's just fantastic, but what we really need, if you can make those happen by 2020, whatever those thoughts are, Hector, we need them now, okay? Thank you, folks. We're really, really lucky to have you all as our partners. We are succeeding here. We just want to succeed more. Thank you very much.
What do you do with your scrap tires that are not utilized for market? Do you send them somewhere to be burnt, or are they recycled, or what?
Well, that's a very timely question, David, and nice to see you. We had not been burning tires. We use them. Track in Minto, New Brunswick has been doing wonderful things with scrap tires, anything from cow mats to the shingles on our guardhouse to compost to all kinds of products. We are almost at exactly zero waste to landfill. As you know, Lafarge has just started burning tires. Now that's more tires that we as consumers would use and leave in a tire dump. The goal first for us was to get to zero waste to landfill, but first you get to zero waste and then you get better with what the zero waste is. So we really like what's being done in terms of second life products, and that's why we have lifestyle products within Michelin, is to try to figure more and more uses for them. But I still think we can do a lot more and better things with the product than what we do today. Some of it is used well, not all of it is used well. And some of it is starting to be burnt, as we had just heard last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, at the Lafarge Incinery here, because most of you may not know this, but a tire is about 80% oil. It's like putting oil in the burner. Now, there's some other things in it, obviously, and that's really the challenge for Lafarge in keeping their temperatures over 2,000 degrees Celsius to make sure they completely break it down and all those things. It's not a bad second use if we can get it completely clean, and that's what's being tested today.
Jeff, you do a great job selling Why Nova Scotia. Can you do us a favor and help us sell Amazon on setting up here?
I would look forward to talking to them, that's for sure. It's a great place. We're full of talent. We are really inexpensive comparatively. Why not here? It's a beautiful place to live. We do live where others come to vacation. People like to have a life today. I don't really quite get this whole lifestyle balance thing, but I get it for my kids, so I think we should be able to sell that. We just need to pull it all together.